Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. I'm very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button and the like button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Welcome to Thursday's edition of the DC Daily, and let's get into it. So, with Walter Hamada, the head of DC Film, attending the DC Fandom, we need to start considering why he's going to be there. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody's talking about this and thinking this apart from me. I don't understand. You don't understand. He wouldn't be there just for this, right? He's there for a reason. He's there to talk about structure, the future, and branding. So I believe it will be announced that his kind of department of films, and I think he will be the president of films and television for DC TV and film. So how will this be branded? I think either DC Studios, or here's one I just thought about and just posted over on Twitter, Detective Comics Studios. That would be a very, very unique brand, although everyone knows DC. They know those two letters, so you probably would go with DC Studios. So I think a rebranding of what's going on, like Marvel did with Marvel Studios. So DC Studios, and Walter Hamada would be president of DC Studios, right? Mainly for the films, and maybe he could appoint Greg Berlanti in charge of all DC TV, and they could work together. But I think what we're seeing is, the hint is that TV and film is going to come under the same banner. I think that's very, very kind of intriguing to me, because the way they're hinting about the multiverse kind of points to that. That would say that this whole multiverse could come under the banner of DC Studios and Mr. Walter Hamada himself. Now, I'm just guessing this because it just doesn't make sense why he's there. I'm excited because he's never spoken publicly before. He's made no public appearances, no quotes. You know, I have a lot of time for this guy. And if you watch my videos when he was first appointed, after Justice League, I did some kind of thoughtful back-checking on him and just looking at his career. A very interesting career, but he's a winner. Very few things he's involved in lose. And when I mean lose money. Even Birds of Prey didn't lose money. Be very clear about that. It was a mini little hit. So even though people are saying it's a flop, it wasn't a big hit, but it wasn't a flop. In fact, it made a tiny profit, as did Shazam. So actually, most 99.9% of things that this man is involved with win, make money. He's a winner. He's not a loser. So we look at his projects. Aquaman. People won't admit that he was in charge during Aquaman, but he was. $1 billion. Shazam. What was it? $400 million. 4 times what he spent on it, right? Amazing. Joker, over $1 billion, right? No matter what the rumours are that they weren't sure about it, blah, 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 it happened, and it wouldn't have happened without the teeth of DC Films giving it the green light. So when you try and come up water with that one, it doesn't work. So that. So, and as I say, Birds of Prey, little profit, not a big profit, not a big hit, but it made money. So nothing that he's been involved with within the DC film structure has actually failed, right? Now, they did a kind of convention somewhere, and they had the banner, the Worlds of DC. Do you remember that? And many of my fellow Snyder DC fans were very triggered by this. Why isn't it called the DCEU anymore? Doesn't take much to wind us lot up, right? I mean, they're still having bloody civil wars on Twitter, right? I think they've actually forgotten what they're arguing about. It's a joke. We got everything we dreamed of, and people are actually picking fights with each other. I really don't get it. You know, you're deadheads. I'm sorry, you're all deadheads. And there's no one in the right and there's no one in the wrong. I'm on no one's side. You all come across as fools. So please stop it. You are embarrassing the sane members. And I never thought I'd be the sane member of anything, right? But you need to stop it because you're embarrassing. Because if you keep on bringing this battle to my timeline on Twitter, you're all blocked. You have been warned. Anyway, So we've got all these wonderful things, right? We're going to get this. I do predict we're going to get this rebranding. So if we go on to the worlds of DC, this was Walter Hamada's idea to have universes within universes. I always find it funny that Kevin Feige gets credited because every MCU film looks the same. But should they tonally connect? Should Thor's world look like Iron Man's world in terms of colour palettes, right? Do you get what I mean, right? So it's like Daredevil. The colour palette in that series, in that Netflix series, is very different. It's a darker, grittier, more relatable show, but it's still part of the MCU. So it was different. But when it comes to the films, they were the same. And I think Walter Hamada actually gets this, right? A Superman film can't have the same tonal palette as a Batman film. And I definitely think that Ben Affleck's The Batman would have been darker in palette, tonally. I think this is what Walter Hamada really understands. He's a really smart guy. You see, a lot of people were upset that Walter was involved because they thought he took Zack's job. But what Walter's actually doing, he's doing a bureaucratic job. So he knows how to spend money on a film, make sure it gets the right amount of expenditure so they can make maximum profits. He's there for the business model, but in terms of production on a film, he has that experience. He knows who to bring to make these films. Todd Phillips is a great example, right? And he worked really well with James Wan, with Aquaman, and David F. Sandberg as well. So a lot of people were accusing him of setting up a cheap budget DCEU, but of course that was never going to be the case. You have to understand they lost a terrible amount of money on Justice League, and they needed to recoup, and they had to look, when Walter came in, they had two choices: burn down the entire DCEU and start from scratch immediately. But Walter Hamada didn't want to do that. He wanted to bring Zack back from the very beginning, but it was complicated until the people who didn't want Zack around went. Because Walter may be in charge of DC Films, but he's not in charge of Warner Brothers. We always must remember that. So this was going to take time. So when you give credit to Jim Lee, which I do, for bringing Zack back, I also have to give credit to Walter Hamada, who was really, pitching in and fighting for Zack's vision. So how Walter was pitching this is that every film is a different universe. So it's universes within a universe, right? And so eventually one day, these people will come together, like a Crisis on Infinite Earths, or a Justice League film that actually works. Now, we're getting Zack Snyder's Justice League, but that's a universe within universes, right? That's Zack's. So Zack is part of the worlds of DC. And this is how I see this all going now, where we brand into DC Studios, right, which will be TV and films. Walter Hamada will be the president of this, right? And then he will have filmmakers making his films, allowing those filmmakers to make their individual movies, focusing on the movies, while this is what's going to be the difference, and very similar to the MCU. The filmmakers will focus in the task at hand, right, while he focuses on the interconnectedness. So I expect Cyborg to be in the Flash movie, right? But this is also going to be a DC movieverse with it's a multiverse, right? So you will see other versions of the Flash and Superman and Batman. So lots of things are happening. The Rock has confirmed, as has Zachary Levi, that they will be there for DC Fandom. Again, I'm pumped for that. But what you've got to understand, this is not just an amusement park, this DC Fandom. As I've already said, once Walter Hamada was announced in being there, my interest was piqued. Something is going on here. And they are going to rebrand. They are going to rebrand DC Films. So I do expect DC Studios to be announced. It's ridiculous we've had to wait for AT&T to buy this company and rebrand the company and actually rebrand what DC is. We are going in the absolute correct direction. And then we get the worlds of DC. I think this is where we're headed. And people will say, I want the DCEU. Well, the DCEU is going to be a small part of the worlds of DC, an important part, an integral part, a vital part, but it's just going to be a part of the framework of what Walter Hamada is planning. A framework full of multiverses, different versions of the same characters that are grade D and Z, or Z as you Americans say, right? So what you're seeing is a really, really ambitious plan. And, the DCEU is just one part of it. It's going to expand. One day you could have Grant Gustin Flash movies as well as the Ezra Miller ones, and that's exciting and that's intriguing. You could have a Tyler Hoechlin Superman movie. And for Arrowverse fans, that would be very exciting as well. So everything is part of this multiverse, these multiple Earths, these multiple universes, and it's going to be called the Worlds of DC, all in the framework of DC Studios. So this is my prediction. I think AT&T are very, very smart. They wouldn't have got as far as they have in telecommunications if they weren't this smart. So I think if you're a DCEU fan, you should be pumped. But I think, first and foremost, I've always said this, right? Chris Von Spencer said a very interesting thing, thanking AT&T for bringing DCEU fans and DC fans together, or fans of the Snyderverse. Well, Chris, for me, I'm a DC fan all round, first and foremost. I love what Zack's done. I love his films, and I fought for the Snyder Cut as I'm fighting for the Ayer Cut. But I haven't been brought together with DC fans because I already am a DC fan. And I think if we can be less toxic, if we can be more friendly towards each other and just love what we love. One of the things that saddens me these days, we talk about films more and TV shows more than watching them. And although I admire the passion and I do it myself, look, I set up a channel to do that. But we do need to get back to watching things more than talking about them. Talking about them is fun. I love doing this. I love debating with people. I love my experience on Twitter because of that. But we've forgotten to actually watch what we love and not just talk about it and post about it. Comment down below. Like, share and subscribe. Would you like it to all be under one banner of DC Studios? The Worlds of DC. Could you warm to that name? The Worlds of DC. What would that be? The Worlds of DC. Yeah, so that'd be WODC. Could that be a good anagram? I don't know. You think about that. You comment down below about that as well. Like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more DC Daily. See you again soon.